Good morning and good afternoon to most of you, and hello from Finland. Welcome to the first Invest Initial Knowledge event. My name is Joonas Aipanurmi and I come from the Finnish Digital Agency, and I'll be your host today. In these Invest events, we will strengthen knowledge of sharing and co-creation among member stakeholders. We want to offer this as an opportunity to connect to each other and share and gain general understanding of European Commission initiatives that are engaged in shaping our common future of interoperability. So you are all very welcome to today's workshop. I'm happy to see so many presenters and participants from many member states today. At this point, I have some practicalities for you, and I will remind you first that the presentations will be recorded, but our discussion later on won't be recorded. Before we begin our excellent program today, I want to remind you also that since we are in Microsoft Teams, please keep your cameras and microphones off when you are not presenting. During the event, you are also very welcome to share your questions and thoughts and comments through the chat. And during our panel discussion, I hope we can make more room for everyone to engage in discussions. That's about practicalities at this point, and we can begin our fantastic program. Our first presenter is Riitta Alkula from the Finnish Digital Agency, and she will tell you more about what we're going to do today. Go ahead, Riitta.
Yes, good morning all, and very warm welcome to you all. We are happy to have you in our Invest webinar. My title is quite obvious. It's interoperability together. Of course, you can't be interoperable alone. But on the other hand, that is not so clear, because in speeches, everyone is quite happy that yes, interoperability is a very good thing and worth promoting. But when it comes to the actual work, the implementation very often starts to falter. And it seems that there is always much more important things to do. And in practice, this means better resourced matters. What I have been doing with interoperability many years or even decades, so that I think that the European interoperability framework has been a very good backbone for all of us, and what kind of viewpoints you should take into account. But it's volunteer, and during these years, very many people have said to me that, okay, that's volunteer. If there were obligations, the things would be forward faster, but it's volunteer, so nothing will happen. But now we have to act, and that is a good thing in that sense that it sets priorities. Now it's mandatory to promote interoperability. And now we have the support that we actually have been asking for. But the act is just the beginning, because actually now the work just begins, and it's our job to implement this act. And in that thing, it's good that we get the practical benefits when the information runs smoothly across the borders. For example, our digital driving licenses improve road safety, and for example, access to health data like medical prescriptions help the people when they are crossing borders. And of course, taxpayers will be happy, because the more we get savings through interoperability, the better. And for our public administration, interoperability helps to make our services more efficient and improves their quality, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel that someone already has invented. But in order for information to flow across borders, we need this cooperation. We need us all. And we need trust we must be able to rely on our colleagues on the other side of the border, and the citizens have to must be able to rely on us. So the basic thing is that when we know and trust each other, we can innovate new digital solutions and build the future together. So this is my presentation, and now we continue with the program. You are warmly welcome.
Thank you so much, Riitta, for your words. Before we continue with our program, we have a little exercise for you, since we are using today Mentimeter to get some knowledge from you and share some knowledge together with each other. So Laura will present in a second Mentimeter code, and you can put in your mobile phone or in another tab in your computer, address menti.com, menti.com, and insert the code 62116836 to menti.com. And there we have a question for you, and we want to ask from you that how are you today? How are you feeling today, and what's going on in your lives? And this is just a little exercise to you, and we use menti.com later on, so please don't lose this address and keep it in your another tab or in your mobile phone. Fine, that's very good to hear. Great, even great, that is even better. Very good. Now we are getting a lot of answers already, and great to see so many you engaging with us today. Excellent. I think this works already pretty great, and good to see so many good feelings in the Mentimeter. So perhaps it is time to continue to our first presenters. We are having overview of the Interoperable Europe Act, and we are going to hear something about the role of the INVEST project. First, about the IE Act and the implementing regulation, we will hear Antonios Stasis from Greek Ministry of Digital Governance, and after him we are going to hear Charalampos Vassiliou from GRNET, the Greek infrastructure for research and technology, about the enhancing interoperability of digital public services across the European Union. Please welcome Antonios and Charalampos.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you all for your interest and being here with us. This is a very important day for us, because I think we have started working in INVEST project about the Interoperable Europe Act almost from January 2025. We have almost 9 months that we are working, and I think this is the first webinar that we try to provide some results that I hope that you will find them interesting. As a starting point, because we don't, although the people that are dealing with the Interoperable Europe Act already know it, we use a presentation that was given by Andrea Halmos, that she was very responsive and supportive from DigiGovLab at the beginning of the project, giving some insights of the Interoperable Europe Act, and trying also to provide some information of the advances in the first year of the Interoperable Europe Act. And I think since we have some colleagues from European Commission, Digit, and other that they could also help us in case that we miss something very briefly. We didn't analyze everything in this presentation. We tried to focus on the parts of this webinar. So you may identify other things that will not be mentioned. This is done deliberately in order to keep the presentation short. So please, if we can go to the next slide. Well, practically, when we talk about the Interoperable Europe Act, we talk about an ecosystem. Ecosystem that tries to reuse. I think this is a main principle from the European Interoperability Framework, that we try to find solutions that can be applicable to other member states. The difference now is that we try to sum them through legislation to make them mandatory, the use. And of course, all this information will be in the Interoperable Europe portal. So practically the join up that some of us were familiar some time ago, now it became the Interoperable Europe portal that tried to play all this role for these things. One very, very, very important point is that we try also to involve in public services innovation, and government technologies is something that the Interoperable Europe Act is supporting. These are these innovation measures. That practically means that we need to engage not only public administration, but also startup companies, innovation organization, academia, civil society organization to be able to do it. And of course, all these things will need training, reviews, and all this stuff. A very, very important issue that the Interoperable Europe Act raised is that we will have a governance. We have the board, we have a community, so all the people that are dealing with interoperability are being involved with the one role or the other. Of course, under the supervision of Digit from European Commission, and with the priorities of member states, we try also to define the Interoperable Europe agenda, and of course the monitoring mechanism to show that everything is going perfectly. Something very, very important, and we will discuss it later, I think, in more detail, is the interoperability assessments. At this stage, from January 2025, interoperability assessments are mandatory, and practically they are part of the digital ready policy making, and this will help to ensure that interoperability will be considered by default. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we are almost 1 year after. What has been achieved in this last year? One important thing is that the Interoperable Europe Board has been established. It has already held some meetings, and the very, very important, adopted the official guidelines for interoperability assessment, because this is mandatory. And of course, the methodology, the concept of the agenda has been approved by the board, and it remains now to be finalized. A second important issue is the new next generation European Interoperability Framework. Already a group of experts have been established. They are working, and these days is currently a survey ongoing that tries to see where the new generation AIF should focus on. And of course, the Interoperable Europe portal has much more material, much more content, much more solutions. So we have a great opportunity of new things and new activities that are being made and being promoted through the Interoperable Europe portal. And of course, INVEST project is one of the collections of the Interoperable Europe portal. So please, if we can go to the next slide. Something that all public authorities are taking care of this is the mandatory interoperability assessment. There is already an interoperability assessment space in the Interoperable Europe portal that one can find the assessment guidelines that have been approved by the board. And the interesting thing is that you can find it in any European language. So for those, because of you that are from Finland, you can find it in Finnish language. For those of you that you are from Greece, you can find it in Greek language. And anyone participating can find this information. And apart from having the assessment, the idea is to make it as machine readable as possible, so that we can easily understand, do reports and all this stuff. And with the help of CEMIC, now it has been proposed a vocabulary for the interoperability assessment. I think these are the important advancements, and I think this is something that we all now are obliged, whenever we try to create a new service, to create something new, to modify an existing one, significant modification. We need to tackle and see what are the binding requirements, that is from the legislation, that European legislation, that we need to take care of. We need to understand who is being affected by what we are doing. I mean, organizations, companies, and all the stuff. And the third thing is what we try to achieve. Are there any existing solutions that we could reuse? So practically, these are the three, let's say, pillars of the interoperability assessment that will help a lot the implementation and ensure interoperability, especially cross-border. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we are talking about solutions. Do we want every solution? We need to identify solutions that can be reusable in many member states, that can be used for cross-border services. So this practically will help us to have a better collaboration, better communication, to focus on specific issues, to focus on specific standards, and practically to be able to more easy to reuse and support these solutions. So these are very, very important solutions. The Interoperable Europe Board has the authority to identify and say which of them will be labeled as Interoperable Europe solutions. And this is something very important, is the new idea that will facilitate reusing. And if we can go to the next slide, already the Interoperable Europe Board is discussing and has accepted some criteria that will make possible to select real useful solutions. That are solutions that facilitate user experience, facilitate your usability, are secure and ensure privacy, of course, interoperability, efficiency, and sustainability. So these are things that we are interested in when we investigate a solution, an interoperable Europe solution. We don't want solutions that, for instance, the communities that have created them don't intend to continue to support them and make them sustainable in the future. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, and something important. How government technologies will be improved. How interoperability regulatory sandbox, this is a provision, a very important provision, will be done according to the Act. So practically, we need to know the catalog of GovTech initiatives. In the context of Invest project, I think we will discuss that later. There is a mapping of several solutions that have identified with some strict criteria, not to label them, but at least to know them that exist. Of course, there are a lot of studies like the public sector tech watch and all this stuff that we already collect solutions, startup companies, so we can find the environment. And of course, there are many projects, for instance, the GovTech for All incubator that is supporting this. So practically, this helps us to do innovation in the public sector, to create a European GovTech market and be able easily to reuse interoperability solution. If we can go, please, to the next slide. Okay, something when it comes to implementing acts. I think a very important implementing act has been issued in 2025. That's for the Interoperability Regulatory Sandbox. When we say Interoperability Regulatory Sandbox, for those of you that are not familiar, we are talking about control environment that either a union entity or 3 member states can propose this to be created. The reason to create them is to develop, to train, to test, to validate an innovative interoperability solution and be able to support cross-border interoperability, trans-border services. And of course, we try to test it almost in a real-world solution, but of course in a controlled environment. How many years can this last? According to the Implementing Act, 2 years and 1 more, so 3 years maximum. So member states can collaborate on that to see this action. Of course, although we don't have currently a clear funding instrument, I would like to inform those of you that you are not perhaps aware that there is an initiative for an European Digital Infrastructure Consortium focusing on interoperability, and practically at this stage, this is called Impact CEDIC, and practically at this stage we have finished the inter-service consultation with the European Commission, and now we are ready, let's say, to officially approve the changes that have been requested and establish the EDIC. Why this is important? Because we have there, and according to the DEP program, we have some focus on the interoperability sandbox, and one of the presentations will try today to focus on these points. So please, in the next slide. I'm sure that you may have questions or a lot of things or further meetings or additional information. impactcedic@mindigital.gr is the email that you can contact us and try to see not only the Interoperable Europe Act, but also the other things that will be at a later stage. For instance, Synergies, interoperability, GovTech, Sandboxes, GovTech, and all this stuff. So these few things from the Interoperable Europe Act, I know that we have missed a lot of important other actions that European Commission is taking care of. But we try to focus on the topics that we will have in this webinar. But of course, if there are any questions, we will be at your disposal to discuss them and further explain. So this is from my side. I don't want to waste your time. I think we have much more interesting context at a later stage.
Thank you so much, Antonio, Stasis. And next, we are going to have Charalampos Vassiliou.
Thank you very much, Jonas, for this introduction, and thank you for the invitation to get the opportunity to present a little bit more about the INVEST project during this forum event. Antonis has set the stage quite clearly. I think he has presented the grander picture behind the Interoperable Europe Act and the elements. And in the few minutes that I have in my possession, I will try also to give a brief overview of the INVEST project, which is the reason why we try to harness all of these elements and through a specific action, a specific initiative, try to bridge this gap and try to move forward in this collaborative framework. So if we go to the next slide, actually to the slide after that, which is the driving force behind it. So as Antonius very elegantly said, this is basically deriving and initiating from a Digital Europe call that aim to actually foster this collaboration among the different European public administrations in order to promote and enhance further the element of the cross-border digital public services, the interoperability of these digital public services, and of course, it's associated with the vision behind the 2030 digital decade, with the Interoperable Europe Act as presented quite detailed by Antonis, and of course the ultimate goal, which is moving forward to the edX. One of the important edX that we're promoting, which is the Impact edX, for creating more or less a sustainable collaboration framework through this part. So this vision, which, as Antonis mentioned, was fostered and promoted and supported quite extensively by Andrea Halmos. It's an important pillar for Invest to build upon. So if we go to the next slide, we can see the basic objectives of our project. The main element was, of course, the establishment of cross-border interoperability, try to strengthen that element, promote the activities behind EIF, the updated European Interoperability Framework, as well as the fact of delivering interoperable Europe solutions and the aspects that we need to take into consideration when talking about interoperability on digital public services, such as innovation, established through regulatory sandboxes, about the testing of new innovative and emerging technologies for public bodies through the different tech providers, for fulfilling the requirements of policymakers, to try and, at the end of the day, to build this collaborative digital ecosystem, which is the main goal behind this initiative, this action. And of course, it covers different parts of these objectives, such as creating a strategic roadmap, establishing these regulatory sandboxes, provide a collaborative platform for different stakeholders involved, etc. So if we go to the next slide, we also see a list of also follow-up objectives, such as also having high level of standards of quality of ethics for the duration of the project in establishing this collaborative platform. The assessment that was mentioned earlier also, the establishment of this self-sustaining environment following the end of the project, that would be a useful tool for all stakeholders involved. This is a project, if we go to the next slide, that involves key players in the ecosystem of digital public services. On our side, we are coordinating as GRNET this initiative with the Hellenic Ministry of Digital Governance, also featuring a plethora of other key players from different European countries that play a very significant role, as you can see here, on the implementation of this action. If we go to the next slide, we see a very brief overview of the main pillars in terms of work packages that we focus on. Of course, quite critical is the fact behind the stakeholder engagement and how to create a governance structure that could promote the sustainability that we want to look for. A really critical pillar is also the strategic roadmap for the Interoperable Europe Act, looking into the digital public service connections, the interoperability framework, how to adopt solutions and promote innovation, etc. Another is, of course, formulating this detailed implementation plan. So it's not about just the roadmap, but how to actually go and move forward in implementing this plan. And of course, the identification of different synergies that could be promoted through this initiative and following on during the sustainability phase, during the operation phase, in order to look into how different stakeholders could collaborate, could create synergies to promote the aspects of Interoperable Europe Act, of different solutions, and in principle, promote interoperability between digital public services. If we look on the next slide, we can see very briefly the strategic roadmap of Invest project, what we're trying to do through dissemination of the Interoperable Europe Act. In different aspects, we want to see about mapping existing and emerging needs. So we want to see and assess basically what's happening right now and where we want to go in the day after tomorrow. How to promote the engagement of different stakeholders and bring on the surface some key actions and initiatives from the different member states in order to foster this element of collaboration, to foster this element of synergies. And then, of course, to assist and promote the evaluation and monitoring mechanisms also briefly mentioned by Antonis as well. On the next slide, we see these key components behind the strategic roadmap. Some information in more detail is going to be presented also by other speakers following on. So we want to see these key regulatory sandboxes, the support behind the implementation of these policies, how we can reuse interoperable solutions and raise more awareness on what these solutions are doing and how different member states can collaborate in order to promote innovation through interoperability. And if we go into the next slide, one key pillar behind Invest is also the exchange. The main pillar behind creating an ecosystem is the exchange of knowledge and promoting collaboration. And we have done that already through different webinars, one involving innovation measures. So we want to focus more on innovation, GovTech-driven innovation with key players from the governments, the different governments and the member states, the SMEs, and how to explore these measures. Other webinar associated with the policy implementation support, how to support the implementation of different policies promoted by the European Union, as well as different member states, how to map these solutions that I mentioned before, the initiatives from different member states, and how to foster or try to promote interoperability through mapping these solutions and the needs. And then we also had webinars associated with Interoperable Europe community, all based on the articles of the Interoperable Europe Act. Then this is something that we try to create this holistic approach. So these are some of these initiatives that Invest put forward. As Antonis said, we are well within the project, delivering some really important outcomes. And of course, this meeting aims also to bring this community closer together and present to you the capabilities that we have and we're trying to establish through this project. And you're more than welcome. And we actually seek this further to engage you even more in this community. And to the next slide, we thank you very much. And we're open at the end of this session for more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charalampos, Digital Transformation and Innovation Advisor at GRNET. Next, we are going to jump into interoperability solutions scene, how that looks like. We are going to hear from Irene Gkoni, associate from GRNET also, and she will talk about interoperable and GovTech solutions. Please welcome Irene.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to present our findings and insights on the landscape of interoperability and GovTech solutions across Europe. This work supports the vision of the Interoperable Europe Act by exploring digital public service innovations that promise seamless, secure, and scalable cross-border cooperation. Today, I will walk you through our extensive mapping of existing interoperability solutions, assess their compliance with key European interoperability principles, and highlight GovTech innovations driving the digital transformation of the public sector. Our goal is to provide a strategic outlook on current successes, challenges, and recommendations to realize a truly interoperable European digital ecosystem. So next slide, please. Our research, thank you. Our research stems from, next one, please. Our research stems from work package 4 of the INVEST project already presented by Charalampos Vassiliou, which plays a central role in the strategic deployment and assessment of interoperability solutions mandated by the Interoperable Europe Act. My presentation today will focus on the solutions and the GovTech innovations, which are 2 of the 4 pillars of work package 4. And later on, there will be a dedicated presentation by Amalia Andria on Sandboxes. And our today's event is the top, the bottom left corner of this table here, of this slide, which is the knowledge exchange event. So now you have the full picture of what work package 4 of INVEST is doing. Next slide, please. Okay, so we adopted our report objectives is to identify and analyze existing interoperability solutions, assess their alignment with the Act, highlight gaps, and provide input for a strategic roadmap. Next one, please. So our research, we adopted a dual level approach for our research. First at the EU level, examining common solutions fostered by European institutions and frameworks. We did a systematic desk research through official portals. We used the Interoperable Europe portal as the main source, but we also used domain-specific portals such as the EU LISA portal and DigiTaxud. This resulted in identifying 72 interoperability solutions with varying degrees of maturity and sectoral coverage. The second level is at the member state level. We did an extensive research of evaluating national digital infrastructures and solutions with cross-border potential. And the challenge here is that documentation from national sources emphasizes user services rather than interoperability mechanisms per se. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so we used a comprehensive attribute classification for cataloging our solutions. The solutions we identified, we used the European Interoperability Framework layers, semantic, legal, technical, and organizational layers of interoperability. We have also identified some well-established solutions stemming from the Connecting Europe facility. This is the CEF building blocks, now called digital building blocks. And then we examined the maturity status of each solution, whether they are in production, under development, or at research stage. We examined the openness, whether there is an available open source repository. So it's a yes or no, it's a binary answer here, as well as the links. We provided the links were available. And these are the technical characteristics we examined for the solution. And then the operational context, the origin of the solution, whether it's from the EU, whether it's national with a cross-border dimension, or even a community-driven solution. The domain coverage, we identified 13 basic domains, ranging from general public services to tax and customs. The geographic reach, which countries are involved, and the implementation scope, And we have also provided in our catalog links and code repositories and a few implementation examples for its solution. Let me give you a view of this catalog in the next slide, please. So this is the screenshot for the work we've done. It's probably, you have to zoom in if you want to look at it further. And it's, of course, it's available for upon request. So this is a screenshot of some of the solutions identified during our desk research. I will not go, will present some exemplary solutions in the next slides. Thank you. We can move to the next one. Thank you. So this is the landscape. This is the categorization of the solutions of the research that we have done on the solutions. We have identified 43 concrete solutions enhancing the semantic aspect of interoperability. These include data vocabularies, metadata standards, basically the semantic building blocks of SEMIC, like DCAT AP, CPSV AP, and the core SEMIC vocabularies. These are semantic, they also include semantic frameworks ensuring precise meaning exchange necessary for data exchange. 57 out of 72 solutions and also relate to the technical layer of interoperability, which means that they are either APIs or messaging protocols, data exchange platforms, and communication infrastructure. Some examples here are the well-known e-delivery, the X-Road solution, and the once-only technical system. As I said before, 6 solutions are the reusable digital components provided by the Connecting Europe facility, the XCEF, now known as EU Digital Building Blocks. 25 solutions relate to, they have a well-established legal mandate. So they refer to regulatory compliance tools and specific policy frameworks and legal interoperability mechanisms. Some examples here are the Inspire Directive, the ECRI for criminal records, and all EU LISA systems. 21 solutions relate to the organizational aspect of interoperability, which is about business process alignment, governance frameworks, and cooperation mechanisms. Some exemplary cases here are PEPL and Matrix protocol for communications. And 8 solutions are also from our desk research are security solutions about authentication, encryption, and secure communication and trust frameworks like TESTA, EIDAS infrastructure. Next slide, please. Okay, so in the following slides, I will highlight some exemplary interoperability solutions identified during our research. First is the OOTS, the Once Only Technical System, which is a flagship example of cross-border legally mandated, co-created and interoperability by design solution in the EU digital public sector. It is in pilot phase and implemented in all 27 countries. The DCAT AP, the metadata standard enhancing dataset discoverability across European public administrations, which is widely adopted for all open data portals, well-known semantic solution, also open source in production. The PEPL network is the pan-European procurement framework ensuring secure and standardized data exchange between suppliers and contracting authorities, which facilitates cross-border B2G invoicing. It enhances organizational as well as technical interoperability. It is open source in production and EU-wide, applied EU-wide. The e-delivery is also a well-known solution which enables public administrations to exchange electronic data and documents with other public administrations, businesses and citizens in a secure, reliable and trusted way. It is also open source. It's a well-known EU digital building block, as I said before, and it is implemented in not only in Europe, but also in 35 countries. Thank you. Can we move to the next slide, please? This slide is features another three exemplary technical interoperability solutions, namely the X-Road, the software and ecosystem solution enabling secure, interoperable and legally compliant data exchange within and across borders. It's open source in production and used by many countries. Initially developed in the Nordic countries, Estonia and Finland, but now it's well known internationally. The Matrix protocol, is a decentralized secure communication protocol adopted also by several governments and public sector organizations across Europe, namely Germany, Poland, the Netherlands, and Belgium. It's also open source in production and used in many countries. Another very important technical solution is Simple. It's a middleware platform, smart and secure platform that supports data access and interoperability among European data spaces. It's a newly developed solution. It's still under development. It's open source. It's funded by the EU, and it enhances the concept of data spaces in Europe. Can we move to the next slide, please? So all these, the previous cases presented exemplary interoperability solutions in the EU with a sustained track record of use, measurable benefits, and alignment with the core principles of interoperability, security, and data protection. The solutions presented in these slides have been selected as best practices in our deliverable based on their operational maturity, scalability, and cross-sectoral applicability, as well as proven impact on public service efficiency. The first one is Mosaico by Portugal, which is an innovative digital platform developed by the Portuguese government to facilitate data exchange and collaboration between public and private sectors. It's currently used by over 500 organizations, and it offers various modules enabling data management, customer relations, document management, and business intelligence. The second one is My Guichet by Luxembourg. It's a digital platform developed by the Luxembourg government to simplify administrative procedures and improve the government service accessibility for citizens and businesses. Over 200 services are available, such as tax returns, permit applications, and document submissions. The third one is Matrix Communication Framework, also mentioned before. It is an open source decentralized communication protocol for secure real-time collaboration across diverse organizations and sectors. It supports chat, voice, video, and file sharing, aiming to replace siloed communication systems with an open ecosystem, thus enabling the digital sovereignty of the European Union. The common success factors of all these three solutions is the open architecture, security by design, scalability, and the clear value proposition. So to systematically evaluate the alignment of the 72 identified solutions with Interoperable Europe Act, we developed a simple scoring framework based on 6 key principles. cross-border readiness based on whether a solution is marked as an EU-wide solution used in multiple countries, whether it is designed for cross-border use, or if it's a national solution, but part of a cross-border project or promoted and scalable for use across the EU. The open source dimension, the interoperability governance, which is for our research inferred from whether a solution is maintained by the EU, by CEMIC, for example, with evidence of collaborative processes, such as working groups, public consultations, or stakeholder meetings. The co-creation aspect, very important, which is inferred from evidence of stakeholder engagement, particularly from public institutions. Interoperability by design, based on whether a solution is an application profile or standard created for cross-platform use. And the legal interoperability, which is a pain point, as we will see later on, such as solutions directly mentioned in legislation, whether there is a legal mandate, a clear legal mandate, or indirectly supporting binding legal obligations. Next one, please.
Sorry to interrupt at the moment, but we have to very soon move
to
the next
go
one.
To the next one, yes. This is, as you understand, it's an extensive research. It's very difficult to compact in a few slides with and share it with an audience which is not familiar with our Invest research and our Invest deliverables. While user-friendliness and accessibility are also recognized as important dimensions of the Interoperable Europe Act, they were not included in our research among the scoring criteria due to the predominantly technical nature of the solutions we have identified. And these are the major findings, the research findings from this assessment, the scoring exercise that we have done. 91.7% of all solutions showed stronger full alignment with 6 dimensions. This indicates a robust foundation for the European interoperability ecosystem, but targeted improvements are still needed. Next slide, please. The predominant layers, there's a strong focus, as I said, on technical and semantic interoperability. Organizational and legal layers are less represented in the identified solutions. 75% of solutions are in production, which shows a high maturity level. We have identified strong open source adoption. Approximately 60% of solutions are open source. And the domain focus is the public administration, predominantly followed by border protection, tax and customs and procurement, which can be explained by the key EU priorities in the past years. Next slide, please. The top performance of our compliance analysis are, first of all, the semantic standard leaders, as I said, the CEMIC vocabularies and application profiles shown here. On the technical side, technical infrastructure, the solutions, the OTS, e-delivery, EID, and e-signature. Flagship examples of interoperability by design is the PEPL framework, the EUDI wallet for the secure interoperable identification and authentication across all member states. The Health Data at EU, an EU-funded pilot project advancing the health data space by enabling cross-border interoperable secondary use of health data for research and policy making. And eCodex, the e-justice project supporting binding EU judicial cooperation frameworks. Next slide, please. Our research also provided some insights on the gaps we have identified. There is a clear legal framework gap. Even among solutions with high compliance scores, legal interoperability presents the most frequent challenge. For instance, e-delivery and semi-core vocabularies provide the technical tools, but some lack legally binding specifications for consistent implementation. There is a governance implementation disconnect. Even the well-governed solutions may face implementation challenges, suggesting a gap between governance and practical deployment. There are co-creation limitations, with some solutions have been developed without sufficient multi-stakeholder involvement. Also, we have identified the documentation implementation gap. Some solutions may lack comprehensive implementation guidance, and the cross-border implementation variations, because some solutions show uneven implementation across member states, creating potential barriers. But these are our preliminary insights. This deliverable has not been officially reviewed by the European Commission. I can only share some basic points here. Next slide, please. On our member state level research, we have identified some patterns. Again, the widespread digital infrastructure, all 27 member states have established centrally government websites. Limited cross-border emphasis, only few member states like Estonia, Finland, and Luxembourg have solutions explicitly identified as used cross-border. Building block adoption shows that most member states are implementing EU-level building blocks, particularly in relation to the Single Digital Gateway and the IDAS. However, documentation emphasizing the services rather than interoperability mechanisms. And some regional patterns. Some regions show a stronger cross-border integration. As I mentioned before, the Nordic Baltic region, particularly Estonia and Finland, are the leaders in data exchange layers. Benelux countries like Luxembourg showing notable cross-border solutions, and countries with federal systems like Germany and Belgium emphasize the internal interoperability between the regions of their own country. Next slide, please. Some recommendations stemming from our deliverable is to strengthen the legal interoperability, accelerate, of course, the open source adoption, enhance governance and transparency, address the implementation gaps, and promote multi-country cooperation. Next slide. We'll move to the GovTech solutions deliverable, which is the second deliverable we'll present today. I'll give you a very brief overview. GovTech is a key enabler for implementing the Interoperable Europe Act. It fosters the development of innovative and interoperable digital public services. It is based on Article 10 of the Act, which explicitly introduces innovation measures to support GovTech actors, mainly startups and innovators, in developing and scaling new interoperability solutions. If we would like to give a definition of GovTech, it is defined as a collaboration between the public sector and an innovation ecosystem, academia, innovators, and startups to deliver superior digital government solutions. Our deliverable provides a comprehensive analysis of existing GovTech solutions by examining their technological integration, their impact and scalability, identifying best practices. Our research methodology is a multi-phased approach, combining policy review of reports from international institutions and the Joint Research Center, combined with comprehensive desk research on existing GovTech solutions and EU-supported GovTech initiatives, as well as stakeholder consultations through webinars and interviews with GovTech actors. Next slide, please. In this slide, because this deliverable is still a work in progress, I will give you some very important initiatives, like GovTech initiatives, like the GovTech for All, building a European GovTech ecosystem. There will be a dedicated presentation of GovTech for All by Alex Borg in the next few minutes. The European blockchain infrastructure, there have been a number of good cases there interoperability solutions built within this the BSI initiative. The EDIC network, it's the network of the European Digital Innovation Hubs, and we scan the whole network of the EDICs in Europe to identify solutions that can enhance interoperability and can be scalable at European level. Also, our deliverable presents some very important GovTech labs like the GovTech Polska and the GovTech Luxembourg cases, long-established labs. Also, the innovative public procurement in Croatia, Hamag Bicro. I will give you some information on the hub. It's a competence. It acts as a competence center for innovative public procurement, and I would like to stand a little bit here because through innovation procurement, governments support the development and adoption of cutting-edge technologies, reducing administrative barriers. This approach is crucial for GovTech as it facilitates collaboration between public institutions and innovative tech companies to co-create solutions and improve government efficiency and citizen services. So innovative public procurement plays a vital role in advancing GovTech initiatives and enabling the digital modernization of the public sector. So it's a very good example highlighted in our deliverable. Next is the Greek GovTech and innovation initiatives. So we have some key governance learnings and best practices from Greek cases that emphasize the importance of centralized coordination and show a clear legislative framework to provide consistent startup support. Combining competitive elements with structured educational programs, acceleration tracks, hackathons, these tasks effectively foster innovation and talent development. The Hungarian government has also established.
We really have to.
Sorry, I'm running out of time. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Irene, for your presentation.
Okay, and the next slide, please, with the recommendations. Yes, GovTech can be a quiet but powerful source of renewal. That's what I'd like to share with you and close my presentation here. Of course, this presentation is available to the audience. And next slide, if it can be for deliverable request, you can address your email here, and
yes,
we can give you the highlights. Thank you, and I'm sorry to take some time from the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we move with our program to Amalia Andria, Information Technology Engineer from Greek Ministry of Digital Governance. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon all. Thank you for joining. Today we will explore sandbox-related issues and the key findings from the deliverable 4.2 of the INVEST project. Next slide, please. Okay, the agenda here, we will speak about the regulations concerning the interoperability regulatory sandboxes that were already mentioned briefly, and an overview of the deliverable 4.2 of the INVEST project, which identified cross-border problems that potentially can be initiated within sandboxes. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'm summarizing some of the experimentation tools, which are the test beds, living labs, and regulatory sandboxes. The key differences between them are in their purpose, scope, and regulatory involvement, but in fact, they fulfill the same purpose of promoting innovation. So if you go and look at the test beds, these are more technical, they focus on development, and the regulatory authorities are not involved. Living labs, on the other hand, include the involvement of citizens, and they aim at the process of co-creation with relevant stakeholders. The regulatory sandboxes, however, enable the testing of innovation in a controlled real-world environment. Here you can find the QR code of research published in 2022 that compares the different experimentation tools. Next slide, please. Starting from the legal basis of the sandboxes, the Interoperable Europe Act that was entered into force on April 2024 promotes a cross-border interoperability of trans-European digital public services. We have two articles, Article 11 and 12, that describe why sandboxes are useful for the purposes of interoperability. A regulatory sandbox is essentially a controlled test environment involving at least 3 union or public sector entities to ensure credibility and impact. It allows innovators and regulators to collaborate, apply temporary legal flexibilities, and learn how solutions behave in real-world conditions before large-scale deployment. What the Act says, the aim is to foster innovation and facilitate cross-border cooperation, with one of the key objectives being the development of an open European ecosystem. While the regulatory sandbox is primarily intended for public sector authorities, as specified in Article 11, upon request of the entities that establish it, GovTech actors may also be included. This allows the sandbox to draw on the expertise of the broader GovTech ecosystem. Now, let's look at the new, the previous slide. I didn't finish, thanks. And now let's look at the new implementing regulation 1420 adopted in July 2025 under the Interoperable Europe Act. Its purpose is to lay down the detailed rules for establishing and operating interoperability regulatory sandboxes. The regulation provides a practical checklist in each annex. This requires that sandboxes clearly identify participants and roles, define scope and deliverables, establish governance arrangements, set up a risk management framework, and agree on evaluation and reporting mechanisms. If personal data is processed, strict data protection rules must also be specified. In the operational side, sandboxes must be notified and authorized via the Interoperable Europe portal, and their lifespan, as already said, is limited to 3 years, 2 years initially and 1 year extension if required. They are expected to deliver periodic reports to the Commission and the Interoperable Europe Board, and to share their results openly. Finally, the regulation also includes strong risk management. Projects can even be suspended if they fail to meet safety, legal, and data protection requirements. Next slide, please. So, as already mentioned, INVEST supports the Interoperable Europe Act by developing methods and tools for cross-border digital public services. Deliverable 4.2 focuses on regulatory sandboxes as safe environments to test innovative interoperability solutions. Our deliverable has 4 objectives. First, define the framework, then provide testing approaches and tools. Afterwards, develop potential projects, and finally, give recommendations for policy and technical improvements. Next slide, please. The sandbox framework we propose includes a multilateral governance, clear participation criteria, and a structured life cycle, from application to and evaluation to testing, monitoring, and finally exit. Next slide, please. To test interoperability, we rely on modern tools, from environments like Docker to the interoperability test bed supported by the Commission, and monitoring via reporting dashboards. Next slide, please. So through a webinar and communication with member states, we identified 5 projects for testing. Semantic data models, SDG and EUDI wallet synergies, cross-border healthcare, the European Business Wallet, and Smart Tax Data Exchange. The semantic data model Sandbox addresses a critical challenge in the digital transformation of European public administrations, ensuring that data exchanged across borders and sectors is not only technically compatible, but also semantically aligned. The SDG and EUDI wallet synergies project explores the critical synergies between the SDG once only technical system and the European digital identity wallet. The cross-border healthcare sandbox addresses the technical, legal, and semantic barriers to wider adoption, since currently only a limited number of member states support multiple cross-border services in line environments. The European Business Wallet constitutes an innovative digital identity solution established under the revised EIDAS-2 regulation. And last, the Smart Tax Cross-Border Interoperability Sandbox aims to enable the secure, accurate, and semantically interoperable exchange of tax-related data across EU member states. Next slide, please. So let me introduce one of the above-mentioned projects, the European Business Wallet. While the European Digital Identity Wallet is designed for natural people, European Business Wallet provides a secure, standardized solution for legal entities like businesses and public administrations. It will store and share verifiable credentials such as licenses, company mandates, certificates, and cross-border authorizations. Right now, businesses face several challenges: legal fragmentation between member states, difficulties with recognizing mandates across borders, inconsistent credential formats, and data protection risks when business data includes personal details. The European Business Wallet addresses these issues and establishes a reliable cross-border identity layer for businesses in Europe. Next slide, please. As we said, the European Business Wallet operates within the framework of EIDAS-2 and related regulations, such as the SDG regulation, the OTS platform, and the Business Registers Interconnection System. We have 4 objectives. First, to validate interoperability between the European Business Wallet and the EUDI wallet. Second, to create and test a framework for exchanging verifiable business credentials across borders. Third, to clarify the role of national business registers as trusted sources. And finally, to address cross-border mandate and representation challenges. All this directly contributes to Article 11 of the Interoperable Europe Act by fostering interoperable digital solutions, supporting cross-border use, and strengthening trust in digital public services. Next slide, please. What we expect at the end of the sandbox. We expect a validated framework, legal, semantic, and technical, for the European Business Wallet. This will enable trusted verification of business credentials, ensure interoperability with national registers and the OTS platform, and clarify liability and mandate recognition rules. The broader impact is threefold. First, a regulatory readiness, preparing the European Business Wallet for formal rollout across the EU. Second, trust, giving businesses more transparency and control in digital interactions. And third, true cross-border interoperability, building a unified digital business identity layer that simplifies both B2G and B2B operations across Europe. The concrete outputs, the concrete outputs will be the sandbox framework and methodology, the a case execution plan, which contains participants and roles, the collaboration arrangements, regulatory issues that will be analyzed, risk management and monitoring, evaluation and reporting, and so on. And then final reporting and timeline, and phases and milestones. Next slide, please. Looking deeper, the Sandbox is coordinated by the European Commission's Digit, with support from DigiGrow and national coordinators. National supervisory authorities act as regulators, while observers include the European Data Protection Board, Risk Coordination Group, and Chambers of Commerce. The Impact EDIC team provides operational support. Collaboration happens through a dedicated steering committee, monthly coordination meetings, and a secure testing environment shared by participants. And the project runs over 18 months in 3 phases, set up in months 1 to 3, integration and testing in months 4 to 15, and evaluation and reporting in months 16 to 18. This phased approach allows us to onboard the stakeholders, run realistic simulations, and then coordinate regulatory and technical feedback. Next slide, please. So what we recommend? We recommend policy harmonization, adoption of open standards, strong governance with multi-stakeholder oversight, and sustainability mechanisms to keep sandboxes alive after the project ends. To conclude, regulatory sandboxes are key enablers of innovation in public services. They provide evidence-based insights, helping policymakers adapt regulations, ensuring trusted digital exchanges across Europe, and enhancing legal certainty. Our deliverable provides a roadmap for design, testing, and scaling of sandboxes across Europe. Next slide, please. This work aligns directly with Impact EDIC, as already mentioned, which ensures sandboxes are not isolated pilots, but integrated infrastructures that support sustainable cross-border digital services. And the final one, slide, thanks. Thank you very much for your attention. If you need any feedback, okay, you know the email. Who will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Amalia Andria and Irene Gkoni, for digging into interoperability solutions theme. Next, we are going to have 2 applied cases, and first we are going to hear project manager and research associate from Lisbon Council, Alex Borg, who will tell more about GovTech programs. Go ahead, Alex.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
First, I just want to say a big thank you for being invited here today. It's an honor to be here and to be reached out to. So today I'm going to present GovTech for All. One way we've described it very often is as a pan-European AI and interoperability sandbox, in a sense, because we are testing different methodologies, but here I underline as a GovTech sandbox rather than necessarily a regulatory sandbox, because we're testing GovTech approaches to digital transformation of the public sector. Next slide, please. So what is GovTech for All? Well, I often define GovTech for All based on the challenges that Europe must urgently address. Interoperability is not something that is optional at the moment. We have so many fragmented systems across Europe that are undermining public service delivery. So it's imperative that this is addressed. The next is digital public services often lag behind. Most government services fail to meet user expectations. We need agile, interoperable, and citizen-centric digital solutions, which we are starting to see emerge, but there's still a long way to go. And then Europe's green and digital ambitions depend on scalable digital infrastructure. Clearly, the digital world has had an impact on the environment, right? So it's now the time that we use digital transformation as a means for sustainability imperatives as well. And this is something that we really need to look at. And fundamentally, European competitiveness. To use the words of Mario Draghi, Super Mario, Europe is not equipped to compete in a world driven by technological leadership. So by scaling top-tier, interoperable, cross-border digital solutions together, we can use this moment as a means to foment greater European competitiveness. And we have, which the Interoperability Act discusses and talks about, a vast resource of top-tier, world-class startups that we can tap into for this innovation. So this is really on us to do so at the moment. Next slide, please. So I often define, and we often define at GovTech for All, that the project is really a prototype for the Interoperable Europe Act, because it really underlines interoperability by design. All of the pilots have interoperability as a core component, right? And then GovTech, or the means that we're implementing, are a means to achieve greater interoperability. So it's interoperability by design. The next is building a European GovTech community. And I believe this is fundamental as well for interoperability. Ultimately, it's this community underneath that is going to foment a culture that leads to greater interoperability. And I think by having a strong community and creating a strong ecosystem, which I believe the community is the first, let's say, the axiom in the beginning of an ecosystem, we can achieve greater interoperability together. So it's something that I really highlight, and you'll see I highlight again and again during my presentation. And then obviously GovTech for All is also about bringing excellent digital public services. And that's a big thing to trust, right, as well. I think, and this has been shown in different studies, that the fact that public services are often difficult to use, and that means that only the people with the, let's say, the knowledge of how to use these systems are often able to access the services that they need, is leading to serious trust issues. So I think it's imperative as well, particularly in the way that things are moving geopolitically, that there's a refocus on achieving excellent digital public services. And we have the means to do that together based on the community, doing this together at a European level. And then finally, it's driving innovative procurement, right? We say that GovTech is, let's say, private-public partnership, innovative means for private-public partnership in digital transformation, using I like the definition that Irene had shared with us. So really, using novel methods for innovation will also support, to a great extent, interoperability, and the Interoperability Act really says something to that effect as well. So just now, let's take a look at the legal framework, and I'd ask you to change to the next slide, please. Excellent. I wouldn't say my most aesthetically or beautiful slide, but I think it serves its purpose. So GovTech for All is a framework partnership agreement with 2, likely 3 specific grant agreements underneath it. So the framework partnership agreement is just the overarching structure, which is permanently open. And I'm saying we have a lot of participants today, so it's permanently open. Please do contact me if you're interested in potentially participating for national digital agencies and top-tier GovTech organizations to join. And then basically these SGAs are kind of like rocket launches, if you will, which is from Christopher Olsen, who had given this metaphor, which I really, really like. The first SGA, which is now over, had 14 partners from 10 European countries, driving 3 cross-border pilots. We are now in the second implementation with 21 partners from 15 countries, driving 8 cross-border pilots with the focus, and this is a very important thing, and this is why I've, let's say, made the claim that it's also an AI sandbox, is because there's a real focus on AI integration and public service delivery, with 5 out of 8 of the pilots including a component of AI within it. We really honed in on this. I think AI, obviously, this is the hot topic at the moment, and it's something that's absolutely critical to start testing. And I think it's probably one of the best examples in terms of an emerging technology that needs to be tested within a sandbox. If you'd be so kind to go to the next slide. I love this image. It really shows how diverse we are and how we're really covering all of Europe. Well, there's a lot of Europe still to cover, but there's a lot of Europe we are covering at the moment. We are a consortium of 32 GovTech organizations from 20 European countries that go beyond, and I think this is a very important point, go beyond the borders of the European Union and including countries like Ukraine, Serbia, North Macedonia, for example, Iceland as well. So it really shows this European ethos going beyond the confines of the European Union. And as you can see, we have a number of national digital agencies, we have a number of research organizations, we have a number of top-tier GovTech organizations, we have a few private sector actors as well. So we are really a diverse consortium, and one that is really at the center of the policy debate, right? With having these national digital agencies, we are really trying to reach the core of government here. Next slide, please. So GovTech is where all Europe's leading GovTech actors come together under one roof. We have national digital agencies, we have top-tier GovTech programs, we have digital innovation hubs and research institutes, all with their own skills, cultures, and experience, and one where diversity is seen as our strength. So this is something that's an overarching point. And the whole aim of the project is to build a pan-European GovTech ecosystem that is agile, interoperable, reusable, and ready for cross-border delivery. Next slide, please. So let's take a look here at, thank you. Let's take a look here at some of the pilots that we had first implemented the first round. It was really about getting the ball rolling, and it was involving either a private sector procurement or a solution reuse between governments. If we take a look at the first pilot, which actually used an interoperable solution, the once only technical system, which was called the Secure Information and Cross-Border Data Spaces, was about using, or rather creating, post-quantum cryptography, like fully homomorphic encryption, to ensure that cross-border data movements were secure in a post-quantum world. And we used, I think Irene mentioned it in her presentation, the once only technical system, which is an open source European solution, and it's something that's served very, very well for the pilot. The second pilot was about helping EU citizens obtain, oh, thank you, sorry about that. I used the, was helping EU citizens obtain social benefits with personal regulation assistance. This was actually a reuse case. It involves the reuse of France's open FISCA methodology for rules as code and implementing a personal regulation assistant in Greece. In the Netherlands, we reached the prototype stage, and we actually reached the minimal viable product stage in France with a housing benefit solution. This is obviously something that's very interconnected with digital-ready policy making, so it's something that's very important to consider in the confines of interoperability. And I think whereas the first two are about the technology, either the reuse of the technology or the refinement with a startup in pilot one, the third was really about the process. We call it the Startup Challenge for Innovative Procurement. It was a combination of the open innovation process and the design contest. And I think this is a very interesting one in terms of this sandbox idea. The design contest is something that is European legislation, so it can be used anywhere. That said, it's typically used in infrastructure projects. This is, at least from my humble knowledge, the first time it was used to procure a digital solution. And it really goes to show that there is a lot in the toolbox in terms of supporting more innovative procurement methods that lead to greater innovation. And now let's take a look at our final round. If you'd be so kind to change the slide. Thank you. So now we have 8 pilots. Hopefully we haven't been off more than we can chew. Yeah. And as I say again, GovTech for All is open to all national digital agencies and top-tier European GovTech organizations. So please do take a look if you're interested in joining our growing community about driving interoperable, citizen-centric, and digital public services. Now let's take a look at the different pilots that we'll be implementing. So we have scaling innovation in the public sector. This pilot promotes fair collaboration between startups and traditional providers by adapting open innovation and design contest methods to scale innovative solutions into existing legacy systems, which I think is a really critical point, which will be important to discuss in the upcoming discussion portion of today's event. Then we have the improved accessibility assistant, which will be a web-based AI-enhanced map platform that centralizes accessibility information using open data and is co-designed with disability rights groups and municipalities for reuse across Europe. Here, I think is a really excellent example where an AI solution could really have a big impact. And I think this really highlights kind of the elements of the AI Act, right, as well, this kind of responsible usage. Then we have the public services marketplace pilot. This pilot develops a blueprint for a pan-European marketplace for digital public services, simplifying procurement, improving interoperability, and increasing small to medium enterprise participation, particularly startups in public tenders. Then next we have simple intelligent procurement, combining generative AI and a centralized GovTech database. Pilot streamlines tender creation and broadens access to innovative suppliers across borders. Then we'll have the super app for North Macedonia. Here, a really important element is the reuse of Ukraine's DIA app open source code, really underlying this pan-European collaboration at the heart of the project. This pilot delivers a unified mobile platform for government services anchored in EU standards and powered by a national e-ID system. And then we also have the AI for automating evidence processing. This pilot uses multimodal AI, ORC, and quantum-resistant security frameworks. And this is very important here because we are reusing the quantum resistant security frameworks that were created in pilot 1 to automate, basically to protect the AI for automating evidence processing solution that will automate complex public sector document workflows, making services more efficient and secure. So they will be helping with the entire evidence gathering process, which can often be very time intensive. So hopefully here we'll be saving a lot of time and creating a lot of efficiency as well. Citizen-centric rules as code. I have often, by our Greek partners, who have changed the name to more human-centric rules as code, because the idea is here about having a human in the loop, which is an important thing. When having decisions entirely made by a digital solution obviously has ethical implications to it, right? And I think this is a big thing at the moment that we'll be needing to look at, is how to ensure that a human is in the loop, right? And I think this is something even the OECD have recommended on several occasions. That is a critical component as well. And finally, I've saved this one for the last. It's actually not the last on our list, but it's the GovTech AI Sandbox, which is a structured experimentation environment enabling public institutions to test and scale responsible AI solutions with startups backed up by procurement, expert guidance, and regulatory support. It's critical to note here that this pilot is not a regulatory sandbox, but a GovTech AI sandbox. That is, that the focus is on innovation and identification of domain-specific challenges and opportunities for scaling and sustainably deploying AI technologies to solve different public sector challenges. So I'm excited to discuss this more later on. I'm going to be doing a little bit of marketing here that I always do. So next slide, please. Here is one of our policy briefs that we published in October of 2024. It really focuses on pilotry of SGA1. It's called the Achieving the Double Dividend, and it's looking at the open innovation process and the design contest and using pilot 3 as a case example of this. So please do take a look at this. I think it's a very interesting resource. I would love to give a pat on myself on the back for writing this, but this is colleagues at the Lisbon Council who produced this. And it's from all of the hard work of the pilot team and all of the responses we got from different stakeholders. And next slide, here's a bit of marketing of myself. If you'd like to reach out, if you're interested in GovTech for All and joining the consortium, where we'll be likely doing proposals for a third round of GovTech for All, for a third specific grant agreement, please do get in touch. My door is always open. And with that, I say thank you. Thank you for listening. Any questions you have whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out. We'd love to collaborate and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. And let's go to our next or our second case. And we have Bredo Erik Swanberg, Director of Strategy and Business Development from the Norwegian Digitalization Agency, Digdir. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you, Alex, for paving the way for my presentation. Because we, of course, have the solution for how to present the public services in a better way. So next, please. The Nordic DigiGovLab project. Can we have the next page, please? Sorry, there. Thank you. And I apologize if there is any noise in the background. I'm sitting at an airport and I have to catch a plane right after my presentation. But the Nordic DigiGovLab project is a cooperation between the digitalization agencies in Norway, Digdir, us, and DIG in Sweden, and DVV in Finland. And it's funded by the Nordic Council of Ministers. Next, please. The main task of the project is to have human-centric governance and have the user in center, where no one is left behind. It's 4 different projects that we have in this cooperation. And it's the first one, the AI public seamless service, that I'm going to present in more detail. We also have another one called automated cross-border information exchange. That is when someone dies in another country that has moved to that country. We are going to exchange information about that between the person registers in the Nordic countries. We are also developing a Nordic AI trust model because, as you all know, using AI, it's important that it's transparent, that everyone understands how we get results. So we are developing a Nordic AI trust model. And we also have some human-centric governance guides and methodologies that we will develop as a main guideline for all the work we are doing, keeping the human-centric governance where it should be. So let's move on to the next one, please. Yeah, one more push. Oh, sorry. Okay. We see from research that, as Alex said, that it's very difficult to find and get the services you are entitled to. The sites are complicated. It's a lot of legal aspects that you have to understand, and most people don't. So what we are working with is using AI as a tool to make it easier. Next, please. So we are trying to use AI, as I said, to make the services easier, accessible for everyone. You don't have to understand the public sector. Next, please. And this is a cooperation between the DigiGovLab project, the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration, and the Norwegian Tax Administration. I will explain how a little later. So next, please. So what we're doing is that we are developing an AI agent using generative AI, where you can talk to the agent, or you can write. You can just tell what problems you have with your own words. You don't have to fill in some complicated schemes. You can say that my husband is dead and I don't have the money for the funeral, because that's what we are using as a test case. In Norway, it is like that if the deceased didn't have any money and you, as one of those left behind, don't have the money for paying for the funeral, you can apply for grants from the Norwegian Welfare Administration. But then you have to know if the deceased had any money or not. So we retrieve that kind of data from the Norwegian Tax Administration. We interpret that you have said, my husband is dead, I don't have any money. And we also use AI to interpret the laws and the regulations that regulates this specific service, and analyze whether you are entitled to receive grants or not. This solution, we are also training the AI agent for other purposes. So the goal is to make an AI agent that is kind of general, so you can use it for any kind of services. Like if you would like to start hunting a moose, for instance, and you need a weapon license, and you can just write that in on a website where this AI agent is implemented. I would like to start hunting. What do I need to know? What do I need to do to get starting hunting? And you are transformed to where you can apply for a weapon license or a license to hunt. So this is what we are testing. We will have this solution more or less production ready by the end of the year. And we're also working on how we are going to disseminate it in other countries, because that's the goal of this work. We would like to have other countries and other public entities to use this AI agent, like this topic for this webinar is. We should not develop the same thing all over in each country, because if we can use it, we will save a lot of money. So yeah, we can go to the next one. Yeah, there should be have a text here that's saying that you don't have to understand the administration. The administration should understand you, and that's what we are working with. So thank you. That was my presentation.
Thank you so much. Now we've heard about some applied cases regarding this context as well. And next we are going to hear Szymon Mamrot who is IT project management, who comes from IT project management from Łukasiewicz Research Network from Poznański Institute of Technology. And he will tell more about analyses and preliminary ideas and some opportunities for collaboration. Please go ahead, Szymon.
And good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Yes, in Project Invest, we are responsible for identifying a synergy between the different cross-border interoperability solution and provide some policy recommendation in this regard. Next slide, please. Okay, maybe it's good to start this presentation with the question, why should we identify synergy? Of course, there is a direct mandate in the European Interoperable Europe Act about this, identifying synergies, but I truly believe that this is a really very important step in our work to make the cross-border digital services reality in Europe. Because as you have heard, there are a lot of different European and national initiatives that are relevant to cross-border interoperability. Some of them share the common objectives. And if we want to we as a public administration is obliged to implement different regulations, and to do it, it is identifying synergies help us to save money and resources during this implementation. Of course, this is one reason. The second reason, of course, if we identified synergies between this solution, these initiatives, there is a greater chance that the solution that will be provided by us to the end user, both citizens and business, will be more tailored to their needs. And of course, if we collaborate and we the stronger political commitment it will be there will be through the shared goals visible. And of course, synergies. Identifying synergies enables to greater scalability and sustainability of solutions. Next slide, please. Our methodology was the following. We started from identifying 4 key areas. On the next slide, I will give you more details about this. And this we analyzed this solution in these areas. And when we look at whether these initiatives have the common objectives. And after this analysis, we've identified 4 categories of synergies. As you can see, they are based on the interoperability layers. So the first category is legal. So this is a synergy related to the regulatory framework, common policies, legislation. Organization synergies is about the collaboration between the expert, common governance models. Semantic synergies, very important because this is crucial when we are talking about exchanging structured data. So common definitions, core vocabularies, data models, and also technical synergies because sometimes we can reuse the currently existing IT system frameworks for our initiatives. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we divided this initiative into the 4 main categories. The first one is digital transformation of public administration and public services. In this category, there are initiatives related to government, but also the particular domains focusing on implementing mainly cross-border digital services in the domain like e-procurement, e-health, e-education, e-justice. So that's just the examples. The second category is interoperability of and data. In this category, we have a common European data space, the single gateway, and the once only technical system. Also, the other initiatives focusing on core vocabularies, data models, and this ISA initiatives. The trust and cyber security is the third category, and we have EIDAS and the upcoming European Digital Identity Wallet, and also mentioned today the new initiative European Business Wallet, but also all these initiatives related to the European cyber security strategy. The last category is innovative use of technology. So we have this all initiatives related to this disruptive new technology. So in terms of legislation, of course, the AI Act and all these initiatives, they are part of the GovTech ecosystem. Next slide, please. And now I would like to present you the selected synergies that we have identified in our first deliverable. Today we've heard several times about the once only technical system, which is implementing during the single gateway regulation. This is actually the backbone of the digital cross-border services. But we have identified several synergies between the OTS and other initiatives. The first one is EUD wallet. EUD wallet can be used to authenticate users, both citizens and businesses, to use the once only technical system. Just to mention, this kind of pilots to showcase how it works. These pilots have already been implemented in potential project. But of course, there is another synergies between the wallet and OETS, because the both tools actually support the exchange of data. So now there is a I know there will be that the synergy will be further investigate how to showcase the complementary between these two tools for the user, not only in the process of authentication, but also in the process of storing and sharing data. Of course, if we want to exchange structured data, we need to have data models. So there is a direct relation between the OTS and all these initiatives focusing on standardizing data models. Even in the SDG regulation, there is a direct written that the OTS should cooperate with the other European Union domain system like MREX or Eucharis. And of course, there's the OTS as itself will also serve as a public administration data space, and will provide data for this common European data space. Next slide, please. Yeah, I've mentioned about the European data spaces, and as you know, this is a ecosystem where data will be shared within the specific domains under the common rules. And of course, as all we know, there are a lot of initiatives in this domain are now implementing, like, or are running, like in procurement, PEPL. We have e-codex in e-justice, and of course, it is important to cooperate the experts from these domains with the experts working on the European data spaces in this particular domains. Next slide, please. And of course, the AI Act. This is, as you know, the data is a fuel for artificial intelligence. The Act provides the rules for trustworthy AI in Europe. But of course, without the data, we want to be able to implement the AI-based solution. So in this regard, there is a European data strategy and all this infrastructure and sharing framework under this strategy, of course, with the European data space. Because this data space will provide the data, will provide the infrastructure to build, to train the AI solution in Europe. Next slide, please. And now I would like to share with you some initial recommendations from our analysis. So I think that as you heard, we identify 4 types of synergies, but actually this organizational synergies are the most important ones, because actually it's all starts when the experts meet and start cooperation. So this collaboration among experts from different domains is crucial if we want to benefit from synergies. It is also important to start this cooperation as soon as possible, even in the preparation phase, when the process legislation is going on and there are some discussion about legislation, because during this phase, some strategic decisions are made, and it is very useful in this phase to look at the synergies within the between the different initiatives. It is also important that some synergies should be reflected in legislation. This is to ensure the long-term sustainability. And it is important to prioritize synergies. So after identifying based on the feasibility and impact, it is good to select this these synergies that will be the most important ones. And proof of concept can be used to showcase the practical benefits of synergies. And of course, the sandboxes are these tools that can be used for showcasing this synergies. As a best practice regarding the collaboration and identifying synergies between the different initiatives, I would like to point out the Single Digital Gateway, Once Only Technical System, and the European Digital Identity Wallet. This collaboration started during when the work on the EIDAS 2 started. So it was really the initial phase of discussing of the EUD wallet. The experts from these two groups met several times. They identified the most important synergies, and then some of these synergies were implemented. The proof of concept were implemented and showcased the benefits from this synergies. And finally, some recommendation from this from the final report on this synergies was also included in the implementing act of EIDAS 2. So to sum up, I believe that if we want to have a automatic, intuitive cross-border digital public services, actually this identifying synergies and working together is a must. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Szymon. What a wonderful afternoon or morning we have had so far. Next is time for our panel discussion and for our small menti.com exercises again. Please open up your menti.com and there's a bit light-hearted question for the first to you to answer. During the time you answer to menti.com questionnaire with the code, I welcome our speakers to the panel. We are going to have Alex Puri, who already presented for us, who is a project manager and research associate in Lisbon Council. And then we had Antonio Stasis, Director General of Digital Governance from Greek Ministry of Digital Governance. Welcome again. Also, and new presenter here, Anna George-Zamartia from Croatian Ministry of Justice, Public Administration and Digital Transformation. Please welcome all. And since our distinguished gentleman has already said something in this workshop or seminar or webinar, I would like to give floor to Anna. Would you like to give your initial thoughts from this day, what we have heard? What is your key finding, what you have in your mind?
This was a great opportunity to hear some new ideas, new outcomes of this project that you have gathered in this project, and also the sharing experience from GovTech for All and the other GovTech initiatives. And I think it's it's a great opportunity for us to share information that Croatia is also starting a GovTech lab. And like Szymon said in the ending, it was a collaboration between experts that from different domains that will help projects and to be stronger, be sustainable, secure, and interoperable. So we are now in the process of forming a multidisciplinary team that will have people from interoperability who know this legal aspect of the Interoperability Act, and also from our government infrastructure that has government service bus